Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Terra Clean Energy, trades on the OTCQB under the symbol TCEFF and on the CSE under the symbol TCEC. It's a Canadian-based uranium exploration and development company developing the South Falcon East uranium project. Happy to welcome CEO Greg Cameron. Welcome to the conference today, Greg.
Thank you, Hannah, for the introduction and the opportunity to present our exciting story here today. Good morning. I'm Greg Cameron. I'm the CEO of Terra Clean Energy, Inc. I took the CEO role in January of 2025 after leading a consortium of investors that restructured, recapitalized, and invested $3.4 million into the company at 13.5 cents. Terra is a uranium exploration company with 12,000 hectares of land in the Athabasca Basin, Saskatchewan, Canada. And we have a current resource of some 7 million pounds of at-surface uranium. Our thesis on investing was we believe there was significant opportunity through exploration drilling to enhance the asset by adding pounds in the ground to the current 7 million we have, and more importantly, enhancing the overall grade of the opportunity. Terra is the only microcap that I know of in the Athabasca Basin that has pounds in the ground and a management team with world-class discoveries under their belt, led by our exploration VP, Trevor Perkins, who is former Cameco and UEX, with discoveries at both companies. This morning, I plan to walk through slides depicting the opportunity, showing you the results from our winter drill program this past winter that have proven we have much higher grade uranium on our property. And after that, I will literally hand it over to Anna and take some questions from you guys. I'm going to move on to the slides here now. So we'll start here on slide 4. This is an overall picture of the Athabasca Basin, showing all the current operating mines, the mines that are being developed, the discoveries. And as you can see, there's a significant amount of discoveries in the basin. The Athabasca Basin, if you don't know, is responsible on an annual basis for approximately 20% of the world's production and has some of the highest grades, if not the highest grade uranium in the world. The largest operator in the basin is Cameco, with other significant operators, Urano, Denison, etc. Our property is at the bottom of the screen, just on the fringe of the basin, called the South Falcon East property. On that property lies the Fraser Lakes B discovery of some 7 million pounds of uranium. We are not far off infrastructure with the Key Lake former mine producing some 200 million pounds since the 60s by Cameco at an average of around a 2% grade. That's about 50 kilometers to the northwest of us. That mine is finished, as I said, but there is a mill there, the Key Lake mill, that is processing ore. And it's significant that that's only 50 kilometers from our opportunity, because you can have all the ore you want, but you need a mill within a close proximity in order to produce it. Slide 5 highlights a bunch of deposits in the Athabasca Basin and around the world. It shows the pounds that are on an M&I and inferred, and it shows the grade. We are the South Falcon East there, highlighted in green. As you can see, we're at some 7 million pounds and at a 0.03% grade. So on a lower grade, but the unique situation here is that it's at surface. Most of the uranium discovered to date on that deposit is basically within 100 to 150 meters below surface. So it's an open pitable situation, which is unique in the basin. And if we move towards developing this into a mine or sold to someone who will, we believe that it could be a very cheap operation. And our goal here over the next 24 to 36 months is to continue to do exploration drilling and enhance that asset and move that up the chart there. Slide 6 is a snapshot of the basin. It shows the Key Lake uranium mine and mill up near the top. Depicted in red is our property and the deposit on that property. As you can see here, we're about 50 kilometers from that mine. We're bordered by 2 northern roads. We have a power line that is some 9 kilometers off the end of our property, which is significant. So some of the, infrastructure required to continue to develop this asset is there, and had the close proximity to a mill is also significant. Slide 7 is a snapshot of the resource, which we inherited on the property. This property was owned by a company called J&I Resources. It was sold to Denison in 2012 and then rolled into an exploration vehicle called Sky Harbor Resources, which is our partner on this project. This project has probably had some $10 million of exploration work, drilling, geochemistry, everything done over the course of the last 20 years. And it's very well defined. Actually, one of the geologists that we consult with on an ongoing basis wrote a PhD on the property. So it's something that's very well understood and we have a ton of data on. And it's quite a unique opportunity in our mind. Slide 8 is a cross-section of the property. Of note here is the red line that runs through the property on 3 distinct areas. That's called the Way Lake Conductor. Thinking back to the map I showed you about the basin earlier, you'll notice that all the deposits and/or mines are discovered in almost a string of pearl type of situation, and almost all of those are discovered along these conductors. So it's significant that we have a Way Lake Conductor crossing our property 3 different times, because that is where the opportunity to find higher grade uranium and uranium at all operates. On this slide, the orange hash in the middle of the page is the current deposit and outlay. You'll see it's all along that Way Lake Conductor. There's historic drill holes and collars that we have the data on. Again, I think there's been over 50 produced in here. And our opportunity is really to enhance and expand this current deposit. It is open in all directions and at depth. And it is our thesis that the eastern side of this property has not been explored the way maybe it should have been in the past. And we did so in the winter and came up with some pretty significant results that I'm going to walk you through. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because really our focus is to develop this deposit that we believe today at $73 uranium spot is significantly more valuable than the entire market cap of the company and misunderstood. But this slide depicts the Way Lake Conductor. It's in brown and wraps around the pink and the yellow. In the middle of the page are 6 hash circles. All of those circles have had preliminary exploration work on them, and we would define those as significant areas of interest with other targets. So we believe there are other deposits like Fraser B on this asset, and there's significant exploration upside. As mentioned earlier, I took the company over in January 1st of this year after recapitalizing it, restructuring the capital structure, and renegotiating a bunch of debt that was inherited by the former management team. We immediately got to work. We got the permits. I did a deal with the First Nations for access to the property and made them a partner on the project. And we have a great relationship there. But we started drilling immediately. So financing closed late December. By late January, our rig was on the ground and drilling. Last winter, we drilled just under 2,000 meters. We put 7 holes into the property. 6 of those 7 holes were mineralized with uranium. And the last 4, which I'm going to talk about in some detail here today, were drilled into the east side of the property on Trevor's thesis, and came up with some of the widest intervals of uranium and the highest grade seen on the property to date. So we're quite encouraged, and I think we can safely say that our thesis when investing here back in December is proven to come, that we do know there is higher grade uranium on the property, and we think we can continue to add pounds to that resource, which will update in another 12 to 24 months and more importantly enhance the grade. Now I'm going to walk you through a couple slides on some of the more interesting holes from the winter program. Before I do that, this is another cross-section of the deposit. That line running through the middle of the page is an inferred northwest-southeast fault that runs down into the Way Lake Conductor. And really where that hits the Way Lake Conductor is an area of significant interest for us and moving to the northeast. And really our thesis was not a lot of holes were drilled over that way. And some of the data we saw led us to believe that we needed to explore over there. And we hit some pretty significant stuff this winter, and we're going to talk about that here. So this is a slide that depicts the holes that were drilled. SF61, those are the assayed results that came back from our winter program. This was a hole that was drilled 200 meters just north of a uranium discovery by Sky Harbor from 2016. We didn't run into the same grade there, but we did basically identify that this deposit is open to the north there, and we did hit uranium. It was on a sporadic basis, not the greatest intervals, and it was more of a grade like the overall historical deposit. And we moved on to drill SF62. Again, very similar type results. Again, open to the north. Those are the assays there. All of this stuff is on the website if you want to get in and talk about it in further detail. And I'm skipping over these a little bit. Although we had uranium mineralization, it was more of the same at surface, lower grade stuff, and not really what we are looking for. So I'm going to talk now about SF63. This was the third hole drilled this winter and probably the most interesting hole ever drilled on the property to date. And I can say that with confidence, having consulted with Sky Harbor and Denison and the JNR, people who've worked this property over the last 20 years, they have never seen anything like these results either. SF63 was the first hole on the east side of the property that we drilled. We drilled it on a dip from the east down through that fault and off to the west and down right to the basement into the conductor, where we believe the conductor is. The assayed results are depicted here on the screen. As you can see, this is a wide width of mineralization, almost 60 meters, decent grades. And more importantly, as we collared through the overburden on this hole, we collared into a clay seam just below the overburden, about 18 meters, and at some points 30 meters wide, that was bleached out. It was clear there's fluid movement through there, and it's never been seen before on this property. And the relevance is that clays and sandstone allow fluids to travel through. They grab the uranium and they move it to an area, into a fault or conductor where it gets deposited. And having that clay seam, we now know basically fluids have traveled through that. It's heading down towards the conductor. So we basically at this point changed our whole program and drilled our last three holes, stepping out 50 and 70 meters to the northeast. And I'm going to show you those holes now. This is SF65. Again, very wide intercept of mineralization, higher grades, spikes up to 2 and 3 times, up to 4 times what we've seen on the historical resource. Again, we collared through that clay seam, so we now know it's traveling to the northeast. And we drilled this down to the basement, and again, wide intervals of uranium, exciting results. So we stepped out again on SF66, same type of wide widths of uranium mineralization, decent grades, higher on average than the overall resource. And again, we collared through that clay seam. So we're now able to model where that is going. We had one hole left in the program before we had to get out of there. That was SF67. This was a hole that hit the highest grade mineralization ever found on the property. Again, great widths, some 40, 50, 60 meters in places of continuous uranium mineralization, grades above on average the overall resource that we started with. So we finished this project quite excited about what we have. Again, our thesis was we had a low-grade at-surface uranium deposit. We went in and drilled the east side of the property, which had not really been focused on before, and we found some of the biggest intervals of uranium mineralization and spikes of grades up to 6x the current resource that we started with. So we now know our thesis is intact. We know we've added pounds to this deposit. As you can see here at the top of the orange hash, there's a little bit of a circle. We think we've at least added that area. We have a lot more drilling to do in order to update our resource report, but we believe we're heading in the right direction and that we're starting to unlock some good value here for shareholders. More importantly, we have enough data now with these wells and the former wells that were drilled from years ago that we have access to model this opportunity up. And we now know that we have the opportunity to find a basement-hosted unconformity uranium deposit like a Eagle Point or a Rough Rider off to the east of us that would host much higher grade uranium. And the significance is all of the holes vertical depth are down to maybe 200 meters vertically. So we're still at surface. This is still an open pit operation. And any grades significantly higher than what we currently have, and we're starting to unlock some serious value. What I'm showing here on slide 19 is a cross-section that we've been able to model with all of our data. It shows the SF63. You don't see all the tops of the holes just based on the direction we're looking here, but you can see the upper bound of the mineralization, the lower bound. The red line running through the page is the clay seam. We now know it's dipping to the north-northeast. We now know exactly where it's going and that it travels down into that conductor and along that fault. And that should all come together around 120 meters from our last hole. So basically, we will be back in this fall. We have all the permits and deal with the First Nations to get back in and drill. And the idea would be to put up to 2,500 meters, maybe 8 holes back into this area. And we believe we've ticked all the boxes for the ability to find a basement-hosted unconformity uranium deposit somewhere in that red circle. If we do that, it will certainly be game over for the shareholders of the company, and we're quite excited to get back in. Slide 21 is, again, another look at that cross-section. It's got the clay alteration. Of note, just below the clays was a significant amount of graphite that we found. The relevance there is graphite basically carries the uranium with the fluids through that clay seam, and it basically deposits down near that fault. So we have all the makings for what you need in order to find a higher grade deposit on this property or higher grade uranium. And we're quite excited to get back in there this fall and again next winter and continue to expand our drilling. We've been able to, with all the data we inherited, map this thing on a 3D basis. So we have a very good understanding of where we're at, where we're going, and again, this is exploration, but in my mind, it's a little bit more like development type drilling, because when you're hitting uranium mineralization in 90% of the holes you're drilling, and you're hitting widths and intervals and grades that are better than the resource you inherited, we know we're adding value to the company. So we're quite excited to get back in there and continue to follow up on the results we had. Management team led by myself, CEO, Trevor Perkins, Vice President Exploration, Alex Kleiman, former CEO, stayed on as a board member and a large shareholder. Jordan Trimble is a technical advisor. He's the CEO of Sky Harbor Denison, and Tony Wanacott, our lawyer, is a director as well. So great team. Trevor, as mentioned earlier, has over 20 years of uranium exploration under his belt. He worked at Cameco, had discoveries for them. He worked at UEX, built that team, an exploration budget, had discoveries there. And he now consults and works on a full-time basis with us. And we're quite excited about Trevor's knowledge. So Trevor has discoveries in this basin. He knows what he's looking at, and he's quite excited about what we're seeing. Last slide, I'll just leave it here, is the capital structure. Today we have around 38 million shares outstanding, a number of warrants that came on the restructuring that are all held by myself and insiders and bigger shareholders. Those are at 20 cents. We've all agreed to early exercise those to continue to fund the company if need be. So we have a market cap of around $3 million today. We have an asset that's worth significantly more. The uranium market on a macro basis, the supply chain is quite, supply-demand curve's quite tight. There's no doubt in my mind that with all the changes and policies that Trump's put in place in the US, that uranium is back. I believe the price will continue to go higher, although even at $73, everybody's making a lot of money. And our thesis is that the electrification of the world, AI, cryptocurrency mining, the insatiable demand for power, clean baseload, stable power, that uranium is here to stay for a number of years, and it'd be a very good place to invest. So in summary, before I take some questions, we have a current resource. That resource is worth more than the trading market cap of the company today. Again, in 2012, Denison purchased this asset from J&R Resources. At the time, uranium spot was $35. They paid $1.65 a pound in the ground. Today, we're trading around 40-50 cents. So a significant, reduction there. Lots of value to the upside. And today, the spot price is $73. The expanding uranium price environment is positive. We have the infrastructure in place in a known uranium basin, and we have a team with experience in order to lead the company forward. So all of this material is on our website. Happy to take questions now if there are any.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Yes. Can you discuss the regulatory environment in Saskatchewan, Canada for uranium exploration, please?
Yeah, great question. Saskatchewan, as mentioned, is probably the premier basin for uranium in the world, producing some 20% of the world's supply on an annual basis. There's a ton of mines, there's a ton of infrastructure, a ton of exploration going on up here, the government policies, the deals with the First Nations, everything is really in good standing. I would say confidently that, uranium is well accepted here and understood, and it's a great place to do business.
And so I know Terra has a current uranium resource on its Fraser Lakes B deposit, which is unusual for a company of the size. So elaborate on the specifics.
Yeah, as mentioned, this property was owned in the early 2000s by J&R Resources in Denison. They, along with Sky Harbor, over that 15, 16-year period, basically spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million on exploration. There is a deposit here of 7 million pounds of low-grade at-surface uranium on a 43-101 from 2016 that we will be updating here at some point next year on the back of a little more exploration drilling. So very unique that a company with the market cap that we have today would have a deposit and have a resource base on the property. There's lots of guys who have grassroots uranium opportunities at this market cap that staked land next to mines or down the road, and the thesis is that, the proximity trade, et cetera. We have uranium on the property, and I don't think, or you'd be hard pressed to find that in a market cap of our size.
And talk a little bit more about the infrastructure on the properties, water, electric, roads, and what is needed.
Yeah, so this is an area that is remote. It's northern Saskatchewan, but there's mines all around us. The Key Lake mine, former mine, I should say, was operated by Cameco, still owned by Cameco, produced 200 million pounds at a 2% grade of uranium. That's 50 kilometers north. So all the roads, all the power, all the water infrastructure is in place for that. Our property is bordered by 2 northern roads that service those mines. We have a power line that also services those mines that runs just off our property. There is some roads that need to be put into certain ends of our deposit. We're not going to do that now until we basically add more pounds in the ground and up the grade here. But, we're starting at a pretty good spot that we have a mill 50 kilometers up the road. It's very important with a uranium mine and mining uranium ore that you have close proximity to a mill. So it makes economic sense as you run your feasibility studies to develop that asset. So good infrastructure, good policies, good government support in the area, and large operators like Cameco that we believe, may have interest in this asset should we be able to develop it a little more.
And Alonzo asks, was the initial 13.5 cent investment all equity?
Yes, it was. It was split roughly 50-50. Equity units with a warrant of 20 cents, and then flow-through shares, which is unique to Canada. Basically, explaining it for a second, the flow-through share, you usually place at a premium to where the stock is at. Those exploration costs that I inherit through the company, I pass on to the investors of those shares. They, in Canada, can then write their taxes, their income down by 100%, defer their taxes. So it's a share that's used here a lot for exploration, and we did approximately 1.4 million of flow through, but flow through and equity totaling 3.4 million was all equity. Yes, there's no debt in the company today.
And Mike asks, what does the at-surface uranium do to production costs? How much of a difference will that actually make?
A significant difference, in my opinion, and obviously there's a lot of work to do to get to where we can use numbers, et cetera. But as an example, Cameco's MacArthur River mine, which is about 70, 80 kilometers to the northeast of us, is producing some of the highest grade uranium in the world, approximately 20%. Unheard of, really. That uranium is 800, 900 meters in the ground. They actually have to mine it from underneath. They're basically in very unstable ground. They freeze the ground, they draw the uranium out in a slurry, and they truck it down to the Key Lake mine, or mill, sorry, just north of us, and process it. Billions and billions of dollars to build one of those mines. Obviously, it's paid off because the grade is just absolutely enormous on that particular asset, but billions of dollars to build that mine. Our operation, where all our uranium is at surface, meaning less than 200 meters vertically underground, we believe this is an open pit operation that we would basically just process the ore on site and truck it up to the mine, or sorry, to the mill at Key Lake, 50 kilometers away, where it would be processed into yellowcake. So the cost would be enormously less to put this operation, into a mine.
And Luke asks, are any assets in or entering development? Are you solely exploration at this time? He might have joined us late.
Yeah. Just to recap, we are sitting on a deposit, a resource of uranium of 7 million pounds. We inherited this opportunity from Sky Harbor Denison, or we're optioning into them. We're really development drilling this asset. There is exploration upside on the property, as highlighted earlier. There's some slides that show those opportunities, string of pearls type effect. We believe there are other Fraser Lake B deposits on this property, but our focus right now is to development drill the current deposit, to continue to step out in the directions, especially the direction we just defined with that clay seam and the opportunity to the northeast on the east side of the property. So it's lower risk drilling that's defining a current resource.
And what studies have come back to show proven uranium reserves? Are there any in the works?
Studies on our particular asset?
Yeah.
Well, we have that historical 43101, which we'll do a little more drilling here before we update, because they're quite costly to drill, and we're confident we will be able to add pounds in the ground and grade to a new resource at some point late next year, probably 2026. There's been a PhD thesis written on this property by a lady who works at Sky Harbor named Christine. She wrote her PhD on the property. It's very well written. We consult with her all the time on our findings. So that has been very helpful to us. So those would be the two reports I'd point to, other than our assays, our geochemistry, and all the historical exploration data that we have access to.
And Dave asks, what percentage of uranium findings would be at surface, in your opinion? It seems pretty rare to Dave.
It is rare in the Athabasca Basin, for sure. Other areas of the world, I think there are deposits, like this. To be frank, all of the current resource is at surface. I define surface by less than 200 meters vertically underground, where you could literally dig a pit and pull that ore out and send it up the road to the mill. So all of that 7 million pounds is at surface. All of the drilling we did in the winter is also at surface, vertically less than 200 meters.
And what's the estimated size of the deposit? Is it large enough to have an effect on uranium prices?
No, it's not large enough to affect uranium prices, no. Lots of other factors affecting uranium prices, mainly the U.S. utilities purchasing uranium for the current reactors and reactors that are going to be built. But we're a small resource by standards. You can see the chart I showed at the beginning of the presentation, but we believe that because we're open at depth, along strike, and in all directions, that there is a lot more uranium on this property. And I think we started to prove that by our 7 holes in the winter that all hit mineralization in another area of the deposit, and we'll continue to work on that. And
Brian asks, how far will your current capital take you before you need to go to the market for more funds?
Yeah, that's a good question. We will put some more flow-through dollars into the company at a premium later this fall, which will allow us to continue to drill. We're backed by a pretty good group of guys. My background, I was an investment banker for 20 years in Toronto at a senior level. I worked at a large hedge fund, one of the largest hedge funds at the time here in Canada. We focused on mining and oil and gas. And we have access to the right investors and capital as we continue to develop the asset. Like everything, you got to negotiate price, etc. But there's no doubt in my mind with the results that we just showed on the slides and the assays being back showing much higher grade uranium in occurrences, 6 times the current resource, that we will have access to the capital we require to continue to build the asset.
Well, perfect. Do you have any closing remarks for our viewers today, Greg?
Yeah, I just want everyone to go away and understand that I think the risk reward on this opportunity is unique. We're spending money, we're drilling, and we're adding pounds in the ground and grade as per our winter drill holes. And that I believe there's, and everybody will say this about their opportunity because most guys that are involved and invested as I am are excited. But, it's a very unique opportunity. I don't think you'll find an asset like this in the uranium space. At least I haven't seen one that has the potential upside that we have, and we don't have a ton of risk. Like, prices of uranium are expanding and going higher. We have higher grade stuff, and we're finding more ore, so we should be able to add significant value to the company, and as we continue to move forward.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your presentation and your time, and we hope to see you again real soon.
Yes, Anna. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, everyone. We'll be right back.